Millions of people have tried to go pro in Fortnite, but less than 1% of people make it. This makes Fortnite one of the hardest games to go pro in. So today I'll go over why it's nearly impossible to go pro in Fortnite and tell you what it actually takes to go pro and compete at the highest level. But first off, why is it so hard to go pro in Fortnite? Is it because there's so many players, or just because everyone sucks? Well, it actually comes down to these 4 factors. The first one being the open tournament format. Unlike all other competitive games, Fortnite is the only game with an open tournament format, meaning everyone who plays Fortnite can load into tournaments. But in any other game, you have to get recruited by a professional organization in order to get a chance to play tournaments. So the open tournament format of Fortnite leads to hundreds of thousands of people competing in Fortnite tournaments, compared to the 100 people competing in an Apex Legends tournament. And although this led to Fortnite's competitive scene being one of the most successful out of any other game, the much higher player count leads to much more competition. But this is just one of the reasons Fortnite is so hard to go pro in. An even bigger reason is the skill gap. If you took an average player and put them in a pro scrim, they wouldn't stand a chance. Even if you put someone grinding competitive up against an actual pro in a tournament format, the competitive grinder wouldn't stand a chance. The amount of knowledge and experience a pro player has compared to the average competitive player is huge. Pros know the ins and outs of the game. They know the exact time to look up at height, the exact time to look for refreshes, and they have tons of strategies that the average competitive player doesn't have. You might think I'm wrong, but there's a reason they're pro and you aren't. Well, unless you are a pro. But although pros know a lot more than the average competitive player, all the education out there is still a significant factor in why it's so hard to go pro in Fortnite. Just on YouTube, there's thousands of videos going over how you can improve at Fortnite, contributing to millions of people watching these videos per month, and contributing to the average knowledge of the everyday competitive player to increase. And then there's even more ways to help you improve at Fortnite, like Fortnite courses such as the Fortnite Masterclass, even advanced creative maps anyone can play, and even the Pro Reality, which is my free improvement Discord that's already helped people get their first earnings. The link is in the description, by the way. Anyway, all of this brings the skill gap up, just like the 4th factor as to why it's so hard to go pro in Fortnite, the player count. Fortnite's reached up to 25 million daily players, and hundreds of thousands of these people are playing the tournaments. And the more people playing, the more competition and the harder it is. But there is just a lot of fundamentals you need to have to go pro. So now let's go over some of the most important fundamentals. First up, the fighting fundamentals. If you want to fight like a pro, then there's 7 main fundamentals everyone should know. Fundamental 1 is defensive fighting, and to master defensive fighting, you need to be able to keep track of your enemy at all times, and you need to focus on getting counter damage on your enemy, most of the time even over healing, because if you're 50 health and they're 200, they're not going to stop pressuring you and you probably won't be able to heal. But if you hit them for 100 with a pump, then they'll stop pressuring you and that will give you time to heal. One way to do this is to box up and pretend to use minis, but really you're just waiting for them to pickaxe your wall so you can pre-fire them, and then you can hit them and make the fight equal again. But whenever you are in a defensive fight, you always want to be in a 2x1, and if you're a solo trying to clutch against a trio, then ideally you want to be in a 4x4. The 3 pillars of defensive fighting are just keeping track of your enemy, reboxing, and getting counter damage. The next fighting fundamental is aggressive fighting, and in order to successfully be aggressive in a fight, then you really have 2 priorities. Priority 1 is to get piece control on the enemy, and if you struggle to do this, then go into Raiders Mechanics Training V5 map and go to the piece control tunnels in the comp section. Then go through these drills for 1 minute each every day. When these are too easy, you want to do speed free building, where you free build on a faster speed like 1.2 times to increase your overall mechanic speed. Just make sure to go back to normal speed after so you can get used to it. Priority 2 of aggressive fighting is changing angles. If you look at the best fighters in the world and watch how they fight, you'll notice one thing: they never stay in the same angle during a fight. They constantly change angles to be unpredictable. If you aren't unpredictable in a fight, then you'll pretty much instantly have to switch to being defensive again, because they'll just predict what you're about to do and get damage on you. Whilst these two pillars will make you a better aggressive fighter, you also need to follow fighting fundamental 3, having protected peaks. Having a bad peak is by far the biggest factor leading to people losing fights. But if you don't make a bad peak, then it will be impossible for you to take damage in a fight. So when making a peak, make sure you're protected and never make a left hand peak. The 4th fundamental of aggressive fighting is protected piece control. Like I said earlier, if you want to be a good fighter, you need to be good at getting piece control. But to make sure you don't make a mistake and take damage, you need to piece control while behind cover, and you'll start winning a lot more fights. To practice this, play the peak training section in Raiders Mechanics training map. Fighting fundamental 5 is awareness, and let me explain how you're going to use this to your advantage. You want to keep awareness of your enemy during the whole fight, then wait for them to make a mistake, and when they do, capitalize on it. So if they make a bad peak, shoot them from a good peak. It sounds basic, but it works. Speaking of something that works, fighting against good players is one of the best ways to get good at fighting. So when you're practicing, whether it's in 1v1s or zone wars or in anything, make sure you're going up against a good player around your skill level, or even better. One thing you don't want to do is waste time, and fighting a bad player is wasting time. And to improve at fighting faster, get as many reps in as possible. Here's what I mean by that. Get into as many fights as possible. So in ranked, fight everyone you see, and play more creative against good players. Whether it's 1v1 build fights or 2v2 realistics, or even 4v4 zone wars. As long as you're getting as much fighting practice as possible whilst going against good players, you'll improve faster. Now let's go over what it actually takes to be a pro competitive player, and to help, I'll boil it down to 5 main categories. But before I do, I just wanted to ask if you can like and subscribe if you're not already, and use code Blexiti in the Fortnite item shop. It really helps me out and helps me make more videos just like these ones. Thank you, and now let's get back to the video. The first fundamental is working on mistakes. Every single top pro works on their mistakes, and the way they do this is by VOD reviewing and watching back their games. What they're looking for is the main factor that contributed to them dying, whether it's a rotate or a bad layer in the endgame. And by the way, a lot of people think if they died in the endgame, then that's where they made a mistake. And although most of the time this is what happened, sometimes something in your mid game, like a bad mid game rotate, is the reason you died in the end game. Maybe because it just led to you getting focused on a rotate and it made you lose all your mats. Another bonus way they use the VOD review system is to watch other pros so they can see the decisions they make, and then they can try and replicate the good decisions they make in their games. If you're looking to go pro, then I really recommend VOD reviewing for even just 30 minutes every day, whether it's to figure out your mistakes or to figure out what the top pros are doing that's leading them to succeed in their games. But the next thing you need to do to be a pro competitive player is to grind. Simply put, pros play up to 16 hours a day completely grinding the game to become the best. So if you want to get to a similar position to them, then you need to grind too. You don't need to play 16 hours a day, but the sweet spot is around 7 to 8 hours. Although you can still get to the top level by playing something like 6 hours a day following a good routine. And you also want to stay consistent. This is something no one can seem to actually do. Not a lot of people can stick to playing the game consistently for even 6 months. For example, I saw a lot of people not play much in the recent Star Wars season because they didn't like it. But people don't quit their jobs because something changed for a month that they didn't like. So if you want to make Fortnite your job, then how can you expect to just not play the game when you don't find it fun? This is harsh, but I'm just here to tell you the truth. Speaking of the truth, one of the reasons the top pros can stay at the top for so long is because they have access to play with the other best players in the world. So they're constantly going up against the best competition. And like I mentioned earlier, you want to try and go up against the best possible players as well. Whether it's by getting into a good friend group or by getting into a higher scrim division like Noble 24/7 if you're on the EU region. They're just a few ways you can get better practice. Something a lot of the top pro players have that contributes to all the success they've seen is mentality. But I'm not talking about raging to something that annoys you, because a lot of pros do that. I'm talking about the mentality pros have that they want to win so bad. They want to become the best so bad that they're willing to put more work in than anyone else and to grind the game more than anyone else. And there's no doubt that this leads to them seeing huge success. They're the main fundamentals you need to become a pro competitive player. Obviously, there are other factors that contribute to whether you're going to make it or not, like consistency, and there is also a general element of luck, whether you're going to find a teammate or not, especially because of the no solo tournaments at the moment. But I do want to quickly touch on confidence, because confidence is one of the main reasons Peterbot is able to dominate competitive lobbies. He's so confident in himself and he knows he's the best player in the game. And confidence is a very big factor in how good you play. Although the tricky thing is, there isn't many ways to get more confidence. Probably the best way is to improve and see yourself improving, as this gives you confidence. But if you are struggling with confidence, then just keep grinding and you will eventually overcome it. To all the people trying to reach the top of Fortnite and putting in the effort, I wish you the best of luck. And I also recommend watching this video here if you're looking to improve. But before you go, make sure to like and subscribe and use code Blexiti in the Fortnite item shop to help support me further.